Alright, so in this little video, we're going to talk about the last calculator that we're going to be using to do all this data stuff that we've been talking about. And we are going to talk about Python. Now, Python is a programming language that is actually used a lot in business because it's actually pretty easy. It's one of the easier programming languages, and so we're just going to kind of jump right into it. And why do we use Python in business? Why do they want to use it? Well, it's free. A lot of people use it, so there's a lot of free modules out there. When you're in the programming world, somebody will go, hey, I want to be able to do this, and they'll go write the program, and then they'll go, hey, look, everybody, I did this. Go download it and use it. So a lot of the code that we end up using is we'll go online, we'll look at repositories and go, you know what? I want to be able to just pull stock price from Yahoo. There's a module that does that for us. And so there's a lot of stuff out there for it, and that's why we end up using it. And once again, I am going to show you how to do it with the AI, but we are going to learn a little bit of actual coding by hand, because the more you know about the coding, the better the AI is going to work. And so it's like I told everybody in class, large language model AIs are great or fantastic, especially if you kind of know what you're doing already, because it'll do the grunt work for you. So if you know a little bit about coding, things will work a little bit better for you. But before we get to the entire idea of large language model AIs, let's take a look at our IDE. So specifically, we're going to be using Spyder for almost all of our work. And once again, this is my desktop, but the way that you would do this is the exact same way in the lab. Just go to the search bar. You want to spell Python. Oh, sorry. You want to spell Spyder. It's S-P-Y. You'll notice because Python files are .py files. Everywhere that you can use a PY, people are going to use it. And so you'll see Spyder with the parentheses of Anaconda, because remember, that's our data analysis package. So I'm just going to click that to execute it. And it's going to pop up. And once again, you don't see there's a little loading screen, but it's on my other one. So this is the Spyder IDE. Now, you're constantly going to see stuff like, oh, hey, this new version's available and whatnot. Don't worry about it. The school will update it as you go. I actually haven't even updated mine. Just go, okay, we don't need it. It works fine on its own. This is actually a program that I use to do something. But let's not worry about that now. Let's just talk a little bit about this IDE. Now, the IDE is kind of cool because it's basically like a super text editor. You can just open up a text file and start typing Python code. But what's really nice about using something like an IDE is, one, you can see this is all color-coded, and all the colors mean something to kind of help you with the code. And once again, I know what's on the screen is kind of confusing for probably everybody, but don't worry about it. We'll get to all that. But it has built into it things that are basically like spell check and stuff, because it's looking for errors that it knows how to fix. And we'll talk about coding errors at some other point. But anyway, so this is our Spyder window. So the couple things here is this is the basic editor place. This is where we're writing the code. This is actually a file. And in fact, you can see up here, this file is called entitled6.py. The .py extension says that it's a Python file. And if you look right here, you will see c:users drrob.spyder-py3 untitled6.py. That is the file location. So if I actually wanted to find this Spyder file, I would go to my C drive, users drrob.spyder-py3, and then the file is in that folder. In fact, let me open a file explorer for that right now so we can see that. Just so you guys can get a little bit of exposure to it. And so here it is. So we'll go to the C drive, our hard drive. That's the hard drive in my computer. I go to the users folder. I'm going to go here to Dr. Rob. Now this is going to be the exact same on all of your computers, except it'll be your username there. So drrob is my one at home, rcamp is my one at school. So I go there, and then I go to the .spyder-py3, And so here we go. Here's that folder, and if I go down, there's Untitled 6. That is the file that I'm dealing with right now. So let's get rid of that. And so over here, this is the console. So when I go to run the file, we don't want to run Python in our normal computer because we can mess things up. And actually, this is why you can't email Python files in a lot of systems like ours at school, because they're worried about being attacked by viruses, which you can write a virus in Python. But this is a simulated environment, so I can run the code, and this will tell me what happens. And then up here, this is our multi-purpose window. The big things for this is there's help, because there's built-in help. Variable Explorer will show you what the different variables mean. Variables are basically kind of like cells in Excel. They contain data that we use. Plots, so if we make graphs, which we will be doing, this is where a plot would show up. All right, so that is kind of what's going on with that. This little button up here is the run button. This is what we'll use to run our files. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn you all into computer programmers now, because we're all going to code our first program. And so we're going to do this before we jump into the large language model AIs. So make sure your Python's open, and I'm going to hit this little icon here to make a new file. And so this is my new file. So just a couple things with the coding. You'll see that some lines will have a hashtag in front of it. That's a comment line, so the computer's not going to do anything with that. And then this is all with the quotation marks and the green text. This is all what's known as a string file. It's just dumping down data. So in my case, it says, if you ran this code, the author is me, Robert. So we are going to go and we're all going to write our first program. And so the first program that we are going to write is the one that by law I have to teach you. If you open any computer science book and look at the coding, it doesn't matter the language, this is the first thing that everybody has to do. I'm not sure why. Well, actually, I looked into it, but we want the code to print hello world. Like I said, pick up any comp-sci book, you're going to see that. So let's write our first Python program. So how are we going to do this? We are going to write a program, and we are going to use what's called a keyword. And a keyword is a function in Python. Actually, it works just like functions in Excel. And actually, a lot of the functions in Excel and Python, they're the exact same thing. Except we don't have cell designations within Python, but we have variables, which, like I said, are kind of like cells. All right, so let's start with our first function. So the function is a pre-written piece of code that's already installed with the thing, and we're going to start with print. And what print does is displays an output on the screen. And so since we want to say hello world, we're going to go print. And you can see it goes to orange because that is the color coding that Python uses for functions. And you actually see we've got some help there that pops up, but I'm not going to worry about that. And then we're going to open the parentheses. And then just like Excel, we are going to put stuff in the parentheses. And once again, instead of cell references, we're going to do other stuff. This is termed as passing into the function. So we're going to pass variables into this. We just want to pass in the words hello and world. And so that's it. We close the function, and then what we want to do is we want to hit the run button. Now, when you hit the run button, a text box will typically pop up, especially on the lab computers, and basically you just want to tell it to run or to execute the function. Mine doesn't pop up because I've been running on this computer a long time. But anyway, so you see over here, this didn't work. That's kind of disappointing, but we had a problem. And as you can see here, it gives us what's called a syntax error. There's two kinds of errors in coding. There's syntax errors, which are basically spelling mistakes. You didn't format things right. Those are easy to find, and actually the software, something like a Spyder, tells us that we're going to have a syntax error, because you can see this little X that popped up here when I did it went, oh, there's going to be a problem. The other was called a logical error, and that's a little bit tougher to track down. That's when you do things like, oh, I put a greater than instead of a less than kind of thing. But, so we have a syntax error. What's going on? Well, Python thinks that we're calling either a function or a variable hello and world in. We just want it to be text. We want it to be a string. So we're going to do this just like Excel. So let's turn this into a comment line so you have this for later. So once again, if you just put a hashtag in there, it goes gray. After the hashtag, the computer does not think it exists, because the way the computer runs code is it starts at line 1 and goes left to right, left to right, da 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 da. So now this has been taken out of existence, but it's still there. Typically, people comment their code to let them know what you were doing. I have a bunch of code from my PhD research that it did a lot of really neat stuff. I don't think I could do it today, but I commented it very well so I could go back and look at it and it would tell me what it would do. So now we want to do this. We're going to do this correctly. And so we'll do the same thing. So the function print. Now, hello world, just like Excel, is letters. It's a string. So we're going to use those quotes. Hello and world. And we're excited now because we know it's going to work. We'll put an exclamation point. And so now I'm going to hit the run button, run the file. And you can see over here, we got line 2, and it said hello world. It talked to us. Congratulations, you are now an official computer programmer. You've written your first program. Now, of course, you're looking at this going, why? Hello world, that's kind of weird. I actually looked into this because it is kind of weird. And the best data that I can find from it is, because you find it almost every textbook. So if you go back to 1967, which was the first real texty book for coding, was written by the inventors of a coding language called CPL and BCPL, and they were professors at Cambridge, and it was in there, and the phrase predated the files by over a decade. And so really it turned out it was the catchphrase of a New York radio disc jockey in the 1950s, a gentleman by the name of William B. Williams. And so he started all of his programs by going hello world and then went off with it. So it's just it's kind of like the save icon and all this other weird stuff that has just been brought along as we go. So anyway, this is your first Python program. We are going to use the AI to generate longer programs, and we'll do that in the next class. So you want to save this file, give it a nice name because you will be uploading this as part of your engagement, and then we're going to look at one other editor in the next video.